I mean, right to the very end. This cannot get bigger. We don't want another regime change war. But man, some of the people who send money to Turning Point, his donors, were very tough on him. So tough on him that I could feel it. You know, I talked to him a lot in the last few months, and he was under enormous pressure. He never bent. He never became bitter.
He kept his integrity to the very end.
To the very end. And I just think it's important to say that because it's true.
Enormous pressure. That is what Tucker Carlson had to say to J.D. Vance just a day or two ago. Look, there are rare times, like oftentimes when I'm preparing for a show, I'm like, I need more info. I'm digging, I'm trying to grab more stuff because I just don't have enough to paint a full picture. This is the first time where I'm like, I have too much info. I have too much on the plate to possibly give you a meal that makes any sense. And I'm struggling to figure out what to put into this and what to leave out. But I'm going to include everything that's vitally important, and this is going to be a very deep dive. In fact, it may be a two-parter because the difference of opinion, I'll put it like that, from one side, the Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Dave to a certain extent side, versus all of the more pro-Zionist influencers side, is diametrically opposed, to put it mildly, and there's threats of litigation and accusations of slander, and it is getting very spicy very rapidly. Again, as I open up my prior episode with a big, long diatribe explaining my point of view, I'm going to do a similar thing here, but I'm going to keep it much shorter. Again, I am only interested in getting to the truth of this case. Tyler Robinson is a 22-year-old man. There is a press conference that was just done minutes ago where they read off a text message chain between he and his lover. We're going to break down the entire thing because it is so utterly bizarre. But I just want to start by saying, before we even read it and assume that it's real, this is a 22-year-old who at the end of it says, delete these messages. The gist of the conversation is that most of the time he's talking about how he's going to get away with it. How I have to go back to try and get the rifle, got to get the rifle back to my grandpa, why you're concerned about returning a murder weapon to your grandfather. Shouldn't you be getting rid of that? Anyways, but then he closes with, delete all these messages, my love. And it's, look, I don't know 22-year-olds probably as well as everybody. I don't have a 22-year-old. I don't know. But allegedly this guy had a 4.0 GPA, scored crazy high in his ACTs, was like very well put together intellectually, intelligence. And he thinks that he planned an assassination plot. He then wrote a physical message, which he put under the keyboard for his lover to look at. And he also texted every missing detail about this case to his boyfriend right before he turns himself in. All right. Well, what I've noticed already in the aftermath of this breaking news is that those that want to be convinced that the official narrative is accurate go, we got it. Told you. This is everything we needed. This is everything we were missing. Open and shut case, life in prison or worse. And everybody else who was already skeptical is just additionally skeptical. So let's get into it. Let's go through this video. It's really important that we just continue to keep an open mind here because there are details that are missing that have been filled in very conveniently with this testimony that gets read off.
Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note.
Okay, so we got to pause there. First off, just to refresh your memory, September 10th is the day of the attack. So these text messages begin on the day of the attack when he is still on the lam and he's trying to get away with it. And allegedly, he has written a letter or on a, I don't know, Post-it note or whatever, saying, I see an opportunity to take Charlie Kirk out, says his name, full name, a little strange, and I'm going to take it. Okay, so that's where we start. Now, we have this testimony from Kash Patel, which I'll show you in a second, where he says that basically, thanks to their aggressive interviewing posture or some nonsense like that, that they were able to get this document, but he says it was destroyed, which makes me feel as if his boyfriend probably burnt it. So I guess they are alleging that they have the ashes of the burnt piece of paper and they were able to forensically put it back together or something. I don't know. That's all missing pieces, but it's worth noting.
Did he write a written note before the assassination attempt? That's what the governor said yesterday. And what did that say, if you could share
So what I'm
that
able
with
to
us?
say, I'm sorry. So what I'm able to say is, I addressed it partially earlier, is that the written note, we believe, what did exist, and we have evidence to show what was in that note, which is, and I'm going to summarize, basically saying, the suspect wrote a note saying, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. That note was written before the shooting. Evidence of its existence, we now have learned, existed before the shooting, was in the location, in the suspect and partner's home. But we have since learned that the note, even though it has been destroyed, we have found forensic evidence of the note, and we have confirmed what that note says because of our aggressive interview posture at the FBI.
After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson: I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. Roommate: you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson: I am. I'm sorry. Roommate: I thought they caught the person. Robinson: no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down.
All right, we got to pause it there again. So what he's referencing is the old guy, Zinn, I think was his last name, who was arrested or detained. I don't know if he was actually arrested, but he was detained right after the attack because he said, I did it. He was claiming responsibility. And there's reports breaking today that say that, one, he has been prosecuted with having child sexual abuse material on his telephone and admitting that he was attracted to 5 to 12-year-olds. What? Okay. Setting that portion aside, which is weird enough in its own right. He also took claim for an assassination explicitly, according to this report, because he wanted the actual shooter to get away with it. What? Okay. So, yeah. Now, here's the weird thing about this press conference and what he's saying with these text messages. So, we're to believe that Tyler Robinson has committed this atrocious act. He is on the run. He is texting his lover, and he is still privy to the fact that there were multiple people arrested that were not responsible. He knows that the one guy was crazy, and he knows that the other guy was dressed like him. I guess he's just sitting around watching the news on his phone, and that's how he has this information. But he's still on the run. Okay, maybe. I'm just saying, like, these are all important things. We have to ask, how does he know these things? Because you would think he's under immense stress, and he's trying to dodge cops, and he's even saying that side of town's already shut down. So it's just interesting. All right, let's keep it going.
It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate: why? Robinson: why did I do it? Roommate: yeah.
I got to pause it there. Sorry. I'm going to pause this a lot. He says there's one vehicle lingering. Now, I don't talk like that ever. I don't think I ever say vehicle when I'm talking about a car in a text message, ever. Maybe he's just very strange. I don't know. I just want to point out all of the weird aspects of the language utilized here, reminding you that these are 22-year-olds that are talking via text message, allegedly.
Robinson: I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate: how long have you...
I got to pause it again because it's interesting. I mean, my recollection is that they found the rifle in the woods very rapidly. So I guess he is following the news close enough to know that they have, detained or arrested multiple people who were not responsible for the attack, but he is not aware that they have found the rifle in the blanket or the towel. Okay, just making sure we're all on the same page.
Been planning this, Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson again. I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle.
Okay, this is where it gets super fucking strange. Like, totally beyond the pale, unbelievable. So this kid has just committed probably the highest profile assassination since the civil rights era. I mean, it's up there, right? And his concern, well, he's still on the run. Well, he still doesn't have the murder weapon in his possession to get rid of it, to, destroy the evidence. He is concerned about getting the murder weapon back to his grandfather. This is a allegedly 4.0 GPA kid. He thinks he's going to return the murder weapon of a high-profile assassination to his grandfather. And he's concerned about what his dad will do if he doesn't. You've just committed murder in a state where there's a death penalty. And you are concerned about returning a rifle which you borrowed or stole from your grandfather. What the fuck? I mean, very strange.
IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the...
Pausing again. If this firearm is owned by his grandfather, and if it has a serial number, well, then it would trace to his grandfather. So he says it wouldn't trace to me. Dude, yes, it would. They're not going to, they'll go talk to your grandfather. The grandfather will say, I was with, my wife, and I have an alibi. Well, where is your firearm? And they're going to say, I don't know. And then they're going to say, all right, well, we're going to check surveillance. We're going to figure out where it went. And then they're going to eventually connect the dots to Tyler. So like, is this kid smart or the dumbest criminal ever?
Ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving both? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke all right. I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks.
So he's saying that notice bulge ooh, which I read about because I didn't know what it was in reference to, and it's apparently for being attracted to trans people because you notice the bulge and then you're like ooh woo. I'm sorry I have to report on that to you, but I think it's important that we understand he's dating a man transitioning to a woman, and he puts that on the casings, and he is texting that man that he's attracted to, saying that if he sees it on Fox News, he might have a stroke or whatever. And then he says right after that, I'm going to have to leave it. And I assume he's referencing the rifle, as in leave the rifle in the woods. I'm not going to be able to get it.
Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K dollar scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again. Delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's called.
So now we have his dad. I guess his dad has seen the photos of the rifle that has been retrieved from the woods in the towel that if you guys recall, it was published on the news. I guess his dad saw it and was like, where is the gun? Where is the rifle that you borrowed or took from Grandpa? And we want photos of it, I guess. Otherwise, I don't know why his dad is asking him for photos of the rifle. So I guess he's on to his trail. Very strange.
Calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, Since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA.
I kind of paused it at a bad time, but what he was saying there was that I think it was either his grandpa or his dad were calling him right then, and he's trying not to talk to them. So they must be really freaking out. Like they recognize that rifle and they think that Tyler was responsible. I mean, that's how it reads. If these texts are even real at all in his vehicle.
Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent.
So there you have it. Basically, every missing piece, every ounce of admission of guilt that we could have possibly wanted, and all of the details are now laid bare and just handed to you on a silver platter. Maybe they're all totally legit and real, and they'll be able to prove that, and this kid will be prosecuted, and it's all this simple. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it is very convenient. It's utterly bizarre that you have managed to pull off such a high stakes criminal act, and you have now written a physical note to your trans partner, and you have now texted essentially every detail that would absolutely put you behind bars for the rest of your life at a minimum. And you have the only mechanism for covering your tracks is to tell your boyfriend to delete the message. Okay. And your big concern after committing one of the most heinous crimes I've ever seen in my entire life is that I don't know how I'm going to deal with my dad. I don't know. Grandpa is going to be so pissed that I can't get his gun back for him. A murder weapon. I got to get back there to get it, but there's vehicles in the way. I don't know. Am I alone in this? Maybe I am my tinfoil's too tight. Tell me if it is, because it doesn't sound right to me. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like the motivations of someone at all that would be in this circumstance and how they respond to it. Some of it does, but like most of it doesn't. Why in God's name do you want to return a murder weapon to your grandfather? What? Now, I will say this. If you're responsible for a high-stakes assassination, there's a distinct possibility that you're a crazy person. Okay? So maybe if it turns out that he had essentially lost his mind, that this is all viable. This total illogical way of thinking and communicating is all viable. Maybe. But I'm not convinced because we don't have any reports to that. We don't have any evidence of that. Okay, that's where we're at for now. There's so much more to unpack, but I want to start by saying this. Dave Smith did an episode on the updates on Charlie Kirk yesterday, and in it, he specifically said people are basically posting and saying who benefits or cui bono. And Dave, I think, is a subscriber to my show. He's watched multiple episodes. He's told me as much. So I felt as if I was being addressed. I could be wrong. I want to be very clear about that. And I didn't take it personally at all. I totally understood the heart with which he was approaching it. And I just want to be very clear. Also, I love Dave. So this is not beef by any stretch of the imagination. But I did feel like I want to address it one more time. As of now, we don't have basically any concrete evidence that Tyler Robinson is responsible for this. So when Dave says that we don't have any hard, concrete evidence that Israel is behind this, I agree with him. We don't have concrete evidence of that either. But until we have concrete evidence one way or the other, like video evidence of someone firing the weapon, until these text messages, we didn't even know where the rifle came from. There is still no round, the actual round he fired. We don't have any evidence of that. So we haven't even connected the shot that actually took his life to the rifle that allegedly belonged to him that he took from his grandfather. We don't have that. What we have are text messages that seem strange. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not. I don't know. And we have a towel, which Kash Patel says has already been DNA cross-referenced and matches with Tyler Robinson. We also have grainy footage of a guy, whether or not it's Tyler, I don't know, walking down a street, going upstairs. And then we have even more grainy footage of a man running across a rooftop with what the FBI says is a rifle in his hand, which I, for the life of me, cannot see. We don't have any video footage of the attack, like of the shot being fired. We don't even have video of Tyler Robinson holding that firearm at all. Nothing. I don't know if we have one prior, but I haven't seen one on the day of at all. So we don't have anything. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in response to Dave, I appreciate his perspective and I appreciate his desire to turn down the temperature. I want to as well. I want to make that crystal clear. I do not want this to escalate into tit-for-tat violence, and I don't want to put any of my friends or myself in further jeopardy, obviously. So, cards on the table, we share that perspective. But I got to say this. Dave has connected the dots, as I have as well, from the clean break memo, which is essentially American neocons writing a letter to Bibi Netanyahu, and they're talking about like how to move forward into the next century in terms of Israeli policy. And he and I and Scott and everybody else basically connects that dot to our foreign policy for the next 25 years. And all I'm saying is this, that still takes a leap of faith. Like you see these kind of thought leaders or whatever that are pulling the strings of power, and they're manipulating us and our country ultimately into a bunch of unconstitutional, immoral, illegal wars, which destroyed kind of the fabric of this country, in my opinion, and destroyed countless lives. And I'm going to give you all this evidence. First off, you should go back and watch the episode I just did yesterday, because it gives you a ton of reason for concern. Smoke, not fire, but tons of smoke. Like, there is not nothing here. I want to be very clear about that. Charlie Kirk, in his own words, said he was under pressure. So there was pressure. I think in some ways we're dealing with two different stories. That even if you believe, and I think it's a distinct possibility, Israel was not responsible for Charlie Kirk's assassination, just to make that very clear. There still is a controversy here and a story here worth telling. And I hope that it doesn't get lost in the desire to connect a dot to the actual attack on Charlie that may not be there. Because here's the real story that no one's talking about right now. Candace Owens came out with these wild accusations against Bill Ackman, Seth Dillon, a handful of others.
A couple of weeks ago, before Charlie lost his life, Charlie was in the Hamptons, and he had more than one event, but he had essentially what was staged an intervention by Bill Ackman, because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. This is not the route that you should be going on. And Charlie was surrounded by his friends, his quote unquote friends. Bill Ackman was very upset, and threats were made. It was at this time that Bibi Netanyahu was called and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, I would say.
So in response, obviously, Bibi Netanyahu ignores it entirely. Seth Dillon also refuses to reply. According to Candace, I looked at his timeline. I didn't see any responses to the allegations. And then we've got Bill Ackman, who comes out with this lengthy diatribe where he basically acknowledges that, yes, there was a meeting, but no, there was no pressure applied, and yada, yada. It's very lengthy. You can read it on X if you want to. There's not much there. It's, in my opinion, a lot of cover and not a lot of honesty. Because here's the key thing to remember. Bill Ackman acknowledges this meeting from August 4th to August 5th. On August 6th, Charlie Kirk tells Megyn Kelly this.
I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megyn, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
Though. No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the fifth time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megyn.
It beggars belief to think that conversation he's having with Megyn in public, on the record, is not correlated to the prior 48 hours where he's having this meeting. Now, could it be someone other than Ackman that's pressuring him? Yes, it could be, obviously. But he is being pressured, and he is being pressured and getting hate mail, essentially, as a consequence of him platforming people that they don't want platformed, specifically Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, namely and most prominently Tucker Carlson. They're very upset about Tucker Carlson being at that event in Tampa a month or so, a couple weeks prior. I think that's enough to ask real serious questions. And Candace Owens claims that she has the receipts, and I am imploring her to publish those receipts. We need to understand, in Charlie's words, because she's alleging that she had communications. Because if she's claiming she has receipts, it must be Charlie in his own words, or she must have evidence of the contract that alleges that Israel, or specifically Netanyahu, was offering $150 million to Charlie Kirk and TPUSA. If that was offered, that's super notable. And if he turned that down, and if Bibi Netanyahu is misconstruing or misreporting or leaving out aspects of the response letter that Charlie Kirk sent to Netanyahu, and in fact, that letter is saying, I appreciate the offer, but I'd like to be independent and I don't want to have any influence. If he says something like that, then boom, this all becomes really big. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I do know. But if those dots can be connected, that means that essentially he was under immense pressure, as reported on by Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and himself. And he received a enormous financing offer, specifically from the prime minister of the nation, for which he is being pressured because he's platforming people who are not pro that nation enough. Hello? That's not nothing. That's a really big deal. And here's, just assume for a second that Israel had nothing to do with it, okay? They had nothing to do with the attack. What you do have, what the real story is that people are ignoring, is that Bill Ackman is saying he put together and funded that meetup of influencers tallying over 100 million followers, allegedly, that all get together on that day specifically to talk about how to contend with counter-arguments against our relationship to Israel. So we have I don't think he's Israeli, but a Jewish billionaire donor, and he is basically putting together a propaganda op, right? What would you call it? That's essentially a propaganda mill in defense of Israel's interests. And this is from an American billionaire funding that. And he published that without shame, as if that's totally acceptable, that you are taking under your wing a bunch of influencers in America to ostensibly probably fund them, I would imagine. At a minimum, you're literally giving them talking points. You're having Charlie Kirk coach them up on how to address these counter-arguments. Okay, that's enough of a story that it's worth talking about, that people should be aware. That's how this works. I've told you guys in the past, there are offers consistently to people in my world to go to Israel. That's what happens all the time. These influencer trips. You've even seen comedians talk about it. Bobby Lee talked about it, I think, with Joe Rogan. Theo Vaughn, a bunch of people have mentioned it. So this is not a unheard of thing by any stretch, but this is like another level. This is saying that an American financier is essentially schooling them up and putting together a huge operation in the Hamptons to have them sit in and talk to Charlie Kirk and get better at essentially being a propagandist on behalf of Israel. Pretty big story. So I'll ask you, are you okay with that? Are you okay with, just imagine that it's not Israel. Imagine it's China. Imagine it's Russia. Imagine it's North Korea. Are you okay with a foreign government basically being like having a lobbying arm in financing and giving talking points to American influencers to craft narrative? I don't like it at all. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that either. I am in this world. If I was offered money or given a boot camp on how to defend Turkish interests, I'd be like, kick rocks, bitch. What kind of person accepts this? And I think that's the really important thing for people to understand. The influencer class is filled to the brim with people who are not, one, they're not intelligent. Two, they're not principled. And three, they don't have enough income to sustain themselves. So they are open for sale. They are open to be purchased. And they are ready to sell to the highest bidder. It's just vitally important that everybody who's listening to this that isn't in my world, that doesn't understand how this game works, knows that there are, and that's why my circle is relatively small. It's very tight. I love a lot of people, but it's not a ton. It's 20, maybe less, that I really believe in, that I think that they're sincere actors, sincere operators in this world. And the rest, oh boy, no. Not good folks and not to be trusted. Can't say definitively in every instance that just because you're an influencer that went to one of these events, that you are a total sold out propagandist scumbag. But I will say, most of you are. And instead of just blanket labeling all of them, I just want you to look into it. I would rather you judge for yourself, because I think it's important that we all make up our own mind. And as I said, I can't know definitively in each instance, but I'm not comfortable with it at all. And then when you take into account the fact that Netanyahu in Israel is talking about basically surveillance, you have Israeli politicians talking about how to counter propaganda narratives from China and Qatar, where he says this.
This siege that is organized by a few states, one is China and the other is Qatar, and they're organizing an attack on Israel legitimacy in the social media of the Western world and the United States. We will have to counter it, and we will counter it with our own efforts. I think that's rule number one.
So I guess his defense is China and Qatar are funding propaganda narratives against us, so we get to counter that. I'm like, one, I don't see any evidence of that. I don't know anybody that's on the Chinese payroll, and that's why they're critical of Israel. And I know a lot of people that are critical of Israel. Now, maybe they are. I don't know. But fucking prove it, dude. Could you prove it, please? I haven't heard of any meetups where Xi Jinping is flying Ian Carroll and Harrison Smith and Clint Russell to the Hamptons to coach us on how to defend Chinese interests better. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So, yeah, it does happen on One Direction, though. And they talk about it openly, as if it's no big deal, as if it's a paradigm you should accept. And I just refuse. So Dave Smith says he's going to be, because Candace Owens implored him and Tucker to release all of their correspondence with Charlie Kirk. Dave Smith is going to be doing that tonight at 8. So I'm going to actually hold off. I'm going to pause this essentially, and I'm going to complete this episode where I know what Dave has to say, because I think it's just more appropriate to do it that way. So this episode will be released at noon tomorrow. So if you're watching it tomorrow, hi tomorrow, friends. But in the meantime, I'm going to go grab dinner with my family. So I'll talk soon. And we're back. And there was not much breaking news, to be honest. Dave did read off his text between he and Charlie. I think it was back in March of this year. And it was right after Dave had been on Joe Rogan, and he was doing the big debate against Douglas Murray, and he had trounced Douglas Murray, which was of no surprise to anybody who's a fan of Dave. And Charlie was basically saying he agrees with Dave on almost everything. And I guess, that's a little bit more evidence that Charlie Kirk was a little bit more, privately, he was a little bit more reasonable when it comes to his assessment of Israeli-American relations. And I'm not at all surprised by that, because since I stopped recording, we have had now Tucker Carlson, basically Megyn Kelly was on the show with Charlie, and they're talking about the pressure that they're receiving for getting like 1 degree out of line and how upsetting that is. So we already know that she's feeling that pressure and feeling the same concerns that Charlie was. Then you have Candace Owens coming out with these massive allegations, which are still not totally proven, but you have Cernovich that's backing her up. You also have Tucker, who's backing her up.
He did not like Bibi Netanyahu, and he said that to me many times, and he said it to people around him many times. He felt that Bibi Netanyahu was a very destructive force. He was appalled by what was happening in Gaza. He was, above all, resentful that he believed Netanyahu was using the United States to prosecute his wars for the benefit of his country, and that it was shameful and embarrassing and bad for the United States, and he resented it. And there's no question that Bibi's defenders on the internet will call me a liar or a kook, but that's a fact. And enough text messages exist that I think it can probably be verified in pretty short order. Not that it needs to be, because that is true. Shortly after that speech, there was a very intense attack on Charlie, and to some extent on me. They went after him and tormented him. Not all, of course, many were supportive, but the ones who were offended by my speech, and there was a small, very intense group who were, tormented Charlie Kirk until the day he died.
And just a few minutes ago, it was Matt Gaetz who backed her up. Now, I don't know how you feel, like, just cards on the table. I'm not sure that Candace Owens is right about everything. I'm genuinely not. Like, for instance, I've looked into the Brigitte Macron theory, and I'm not convinced that that's not a woman. And I think that she may be doing a really bad thing in that regard. I'm not confident, so I'm not going to say that she's actually wrong. But like, I have my doubts. So, anyways, point being, if you're in my camp and you're like, I'm not 100% sure that Candace is right about everything, and I'm not sure that Candace is right about everything when it comes to this story either. But I'll tell you what I am confident about. I am confident that she's right that Charlie Kirk was under a lot of pressure. And if you have Mike Cernovich, if you have Tucker Carlson backing that up, and now you have Tucker Carlson who came out with his report, and you have Matt Gaetz backing that up, well, combined, you have a person that I trust a lot. That's like 5 people that amount to, along with Dave, that amounts to, like, for me, good enough evidence to be like, yes, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I mean, why are we even questioning this? Charlie Kirk said it himself that he was getting massive hate as a consequence of that. There was articles being read about him, and he was getting text messages and just, being called an anti-Semite, like terrible stuff, especially for a guy who like professionally carried water for Israel. And now he's getting hate. So that's pretty much irrefutable, is it not? So that's a fact as far as I'm concerned. And I am totally in the Tucker Candace camp as of now. I think, especially with Matt Gaetz backing them up, who should have been the AG, Pam Bondi, you fucking bum.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. What are you, some fucking college professor out of Harvard? You absolute imbecile. You're the highest law enforcement in this country, and you think that there's hate speech and then there's free speech? No. Oh, I almost said so many bad words just there. Anyways, I'm not happy with her, and she should be fired. But then Donald Trump came out today and he said this.
And what do you make Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is that, I mean, a lot of your allies say hate speech is free speech.
She'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart. Maybe they'll come after ABC. Well, ABC paid me $16 million recently for a form of hate speech, right? Your company paid me $16 million for a form of hate speech. So maybe they'll have to go after you.
So yeah, Trump can resign as far as I'm concerned. Because if you think that hate speech is a thing, and sure, he was trolling the media, blah, 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 and he doesn't actually mean it, I don't care. I don't want the president of the United States ever using the phrase hate speech, and I definitely don't want the attorney general of the United States using a phrase that has no place in American jurisprudence. Hate speech is not a thing. You fucking idiots. It's not a thing. Shut up. And you can all resign, okay? Just want to be on the record about that. Anyways, getting back to the point. So we've got these 5 people combined that I trust a lot. You then have a tweet from Harrison Smith that happens a month prior that has now been confirmed, I might add, as I mentioned on my last episode, that I was hoping that Max Blumenthal and Harrison Smith would get on the phone. They had him on Harrison's show today yesterday, and they confirmed that in fact their sources are different. So we now have 2 independent sources that are insiders, one of which is an insider in the White House, at least one of which, and they are basically saying the exact same thing, that Charlie Kirk was not just being pressured, but he was fearful. So look, maybe this portion is wrong. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm just saying, 2 independent sources saying the same thing. It's worth considering deeply. I might add that one of them also said that the president of the United States is afraid of them. That's a pretty big deal. Again, setting that aside because we can't prove that definitively, but I'm just saying, you add that on top of these 5 people that I trust collectively, and it's like, I'm convinced. I'm just going to say it. I'm convinced. Now, what am I convinced of? Because I think it's very important I be explicit about this, because otherwise I'll be taken way out of context. I am not convinced that Israel is responsible. I actually think it's a better than 50% chance that this Tyler kid is the gunman. I think it's probably 75, 80% chance that he's the one who did it. Now, am I convinced that he worked alone? Not particularly. And I'll be honest, I think that Matt Walsh's take about this is probably the most likely, is that this text message chain, if it was not just whole cloth created by the FBI, was probably created by him and his lover to give cover to his lover, his boyfriend, girlfriend. That's my guess, because it just doesn't read with any level of authenticity. It gives you every missing detail, as if there was like a list and they're like, what evidence don't we have so far? And they're like, well, we don't have A, B, C, D. And they're like, put that in the letter. All right. And we got, it's absurd. To me, it's absurd. That's the benign explanation, that Tyler's the gunman, maybe, and he crafts these text messages because he actually orchestrated this plot with his boyfriend, girlfriend, and that's why they crafted these messages, to give them an out, to give them cover. That's Matt Walsh's theory. I think it's as likely as anything. So the thing that I agree with Tucker, Candace, why I'm in their camp, is because the people that are denying this, the Bill Ackmans of the world, I don't think that they're behaving in an honorable fashion. And in fact, Dave Smith confirmed that Josh Hammer is as much of a snake as I thought he was. And I do not like that guy at all. I think he's a really, really duplicitous, deceptive actor in this world. And I think he's a propagandist, and I think he's on the payroll. That's my opinion. I can't prove that. But I don't think he's a good person. I really don't. So you've got Josh Hammer's backing up Ackman, and it's like, all right, I've seen enough. I've seen enough to know that I'm dealing with like a side that, sure, maybe they get stuff wrong periodically, but at least they are trying for the truth. And then you have this other side that I'm like, I don't think you guys are actually interested in telling the truth. And I think that really there's a better than 50% chance that the cover-up is worse than the crime. I think that the pressure was being applied to Charlie Kirk. I'm not sure that it was coming from Ackman, but I am fairly confident it was coming during that 2-day event, which, by the way, that Turning Point USA event wasn't publicized. You had photos of some of these influencers that were taking photos of themselves. None of them were saying why they were there. Well, let me just tell you, when it's a big TPUSA event, everyone's hashtagging it. They're like, I'm over at the TPUSA down in Tampa or wherever. They didn't say they said where they were at, but they didn't say why they were there. And they were just like, we're at the Hamptons partying it up. So, point being, I don't think that soiree of 20 or 30, I think it was 30 plus influencers with Charlie Kirk, along with Ackman and others, to coach them up on Israeli talking points or pro-Israel talking points, was supposed to be public. I don't think that was supposed to be publicized, and I think that they are embarrassed by it. But moreover, I think that the truth is that Charlie Kirk was being pressured very aggressively, and they were very upset, and they were trying very hard to deplatform Tucker Carlson specifically and kind of Dave Smith secondarily. And I think that it looks bad optically, and they just don't want that to be out. So I think that the odds are against them actually ordering a hit against Charlie Kirk. That would be fucking crazy. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the odds have to be against that, right? I hope. Anyways, so I think that could be all this is that the reason that they're lying so aggressively is because they realize that, like, we're not going to like the idea that you were pressuring Charlie Kirk to deplatform Tucker Carlson, and you're going to basically lose your home on the right wing and the TPUSA audience, which is millions of young people, young conservatives, which are already skeptical of Israel, are going to be like, fuck you guys. So I think that's the least malicious explanation as to why this is all happening, if I'm reading this correctly. And maybe it's much worse than that. That's also a possibility. But I think that's the minimum. That's my honest opinion as to the minimum. So to recap for Dave, because I said this was a reply to Dave Smith, I wanted to give him just a quick breakdown of all of the bizarre aspects of this story that I think that he should contend with if he's going to go Occam's razor on me. We now have not just one, but two independent sources confirming that Kirk was scared of Netanyahu, including one who said Trump holds the same fear. Trump, in my opinion, is acting kind of like he's afraid. Like from Kash Patel, wide-eyed, and Dan Bongino, and how they've seen a ghost, and it's like the Epstein files never existed, and there's no there, and all that. And then Trump doing literally whatever Israel wants all the time. All right, so maybe not. Then we have Cernovich, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Matt Gaetz, now all say that the pressure from the donors towards Charlie was extraordinary, and many of those same people now eulogize Charlie Kirk to their own ends, specifically Bibi Netanyahu, which I think is what really triggered this backlash, is that Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens were like, no, the fuck you don't. He was not your best friend. You shut up. He did not die for your cause. You're a liar. And I respect that because I think that that's deeply inappropriate. So that's my opinion. Then you have Bibi Netanyahu going on this media blitz where he is overtly, to Greta Van Susteren, denying that Israel was responsible for Charlie Kirk's death.
It's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid, and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying that. Over the centuries, when Jews, especially in the Middle Ages, the horrific Middle Ages, we were poisoning the wells, we were drinking the blood of Christian children, you name it. I mean, these things, that continued actually up to the Holocaust.
And it's like, I mean, have you ever seen an American assassination story where a foreign politician, the head of state basically, is asked and is denying their involvement in his murder? Okay, I'm just saying, that's odd, is it not? Then you have, Bibi touring the U.S. just earlier this year, this Israeli propaganda blitz tour, and he's doing PBD and he's doing all these other shows. But his best friend, who he just got this love letter from and who died for the cause of Israel, allegedly, according to Bibi, he doesn't do Charlie Kirk's show. And I'll just tell you, the way Candace Owens talked about it, I think that there's a real good reason for that. I think that Charlie Kirk was trying to distance himself from him specifically, but that cause more broadly. Not the cause of Israel, but certainly the cause of that war. I think it really bothered him. That's my honest opinion. And I think he was trying to put distance between himself and that, because it was, even if it wasn't a moral distinction, it was destroying his reputation and it was damaging his brand. And I personally think it would have been done for moral reasons, because I've listened to so many people talk about him over the past week, and it's evident to me that he had a very strong moral character. And I think that he was shifting as a consequence of that moral character. And he was looking at the death and destruction and everything else. And he was just like, I've got to get away from this. So that's my opinion. But Bibi comes to the States, does this media blitz, doesn't do Charlie's show. His best friend. Okay. Then you have the text evidence from Tyler Robinson, which is undeniably strange. Also, he's trying to return the murder weapon to his grandfather. Okay. We also don't have any ballistic match between the round, which hasn't even been found, the round that actually took Charlie's life, not found. And we don't have any ballistic match, obviously, because we don't have it, to match that to the alleged murder weapon, which was found in the woods in a towel after he ran off the rooftop and jumped down, even though in that video you can't see it. But then to explain away the fact that you can't see that rifle when he jumps down, it's because it had been disassembled, which takes multiple minutes and requires a screwdriver, which Kash Patel says that they found the screwdriver, and that's why. But also, then he reassembled it to ditch it in the woods. Okay. Makes sense. Then we also have no footage of him with that weapon or firing the weapon or anything like that. So that's another missing link. And then you also have not one, but two people allegedly claiming responsibility for the attack on Charlie Kirk within seconds of an actual fatal attack on Charlie Kirk from someone other than them, but they're not related to one another. Okay. And then also, I might add, one of them was present for 9/11, and he also has CSEM on his phone. Because whenever I go to a public speaking event for some Politico, I make sure if there's an attack on that speaker to immediately announce myself as being the responsible party. And also I make sure that I have very criminal photos on my phone simultaneously. I probably shouldn't have said that. That's going to be taken out of context. Anyways, what I'm saying is it's absurd. What the fuck story is that? So strange. All right. So you got that whole litany of questions that still need to be answered. And then you have your people. You got Tucker. You got Candace. You got Max Blumenthal too. I think you're buddies with him. Like, whether or not they're right about everything, they definitely, as I said, I think that they've all of them have got stuff wrong for sure. But I think that they are all good actors in the sense that they are interested in the truth. And I cannot say the same about the people that are refuting them. And I have to rely on that to some extent. So you combine all of these things, and I think that it's fair. It's fair to continue digging. It's fair to continue seeking for additional evidence to actually convince us of what happened on that day. Because even though it's only been a week, in some ways I feel like, and this is the one thing, I don't know if Dave would say this, but I think he would agree with me, is that in some ways I don't like that this portion of the story has gotten so much focus that, Israel might be behind it, because we don't know that. We definitely don't know that. And I think in some ways it could, if it's not true, it could serve as a distraction from the focus, and the focus should be making sure that you get the right fucking person or persons, perhaps, that are responsible for this, because we need to know. And this is what I said during the first breakdown of this story, which, by the way, thank you guys all so much for watching. It, lots of people watched, so many comments, and everybody was very pumped about the coverage that I gave to it. So I really appreciated the feedback. But as I said during that episode, that's my primary concern, because as much as, primary concern, justice for Charlie and his kids and his wife, his family. But moreover, we cannot let this be another Butler. We cannot have just massive gaps of knowledge and a total, void in a conclusive story as to what transpired and why and who and justice, because this cannot be normalized in this country. We cannot have political assassinations become normalized in this country. And that is my deepest concern, is that this infighting amongst the influencer class, many of which I like, full cards on the table, I do not want it to lose sight of what matters most, is that this does not happen to anybody else, and that this does not become a common occurrence in our country. And I think, and I'm pretty confident that everybody involved would and should, at minimum, agree with what I'm saying right now. It is very important. Super, 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 super important. I hope everybody watching this agrees with me and does not want to live in a country like that. I don't want to live in some third world hellhole where people get pot like Mexico, where there's every election season, there's like dozens of politicians that get whacked. That shit sucks. I don't want to live in some third world hellhole like that. And we're perilously close. So anyways, the point that I was trying to make earlier that I don't think I made really eloquently is, like, I'm not saying because Dave agrees with clean break and he thinks that the neocons and that policy became reality, like, you connect those dots, and therefore our foreign policy was a consequence of what benefits Israel and not so much American interests, that he needs to agree with this story. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying keep an open mind. That's it. And I think that, in honor of Charlie, we need to know for sure. We need to know for sure. And I just don't think, and I don't think Dave's closing off this option, just to be clear. But those that are laughing it off as if it's just a total impossibility, couldn't happen. They, just to recap, countless assassinations over the past 3 years. Countless. And for the record, since their beginning, since 48, since they started, it's just like a litany of assassinations. Like they're like the best at it, if you want to put best as the term to describe that. But then the pager attacks against Hezbollah and So many. They just struck Qatar to try and take out Hamas leadership in a country that is an American ally against American desires and permissions, allegedly. It's nuts. It's nuts. So for people to say like, oh, it can't be happening. It's Israel again. I'm not saying it's Israel, but if you think it's impossible, you're fucking not paying attention. You're not paying attention. It is possible. And I'm going to keep digging. And I'm confident that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson are going to keep digging. And I think we're going to have some receipts that demonstrate exactly how Charlie Kirk felt about Bibi Netanyahu and how he felt about the attempts to pressure him and deplatform Tucker and everything else. I think that's going to be released in the not too distant future. And when it does, oh boy, strap in. Because a lot of liars are going to be shown to be liars. And if I'm wrong, well, then I'll apologize. But I doubt it. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please do hit the like button, subscribe, and share it around. And please, if you want to, like, if there's anything that you found interesting, clip it, share it on social media, tag me, I'll share it too. And last but not least, if you want to support my work, at Liberty Lock Pod on X is an easy way to subscribe, and I will follow you back. It's $5 a month. It ain't much, but collectively it helps. So I appreciate you guys. But most importantly, if you're watching right now, subscribe to Liberty Lockdown on audio so that you can download the episodes. And if you're listening right now, subscribe to Liberty Lockdown on YouTube, Rumble, wherever else, so that it helps. It helps. And I appreciate you guys. About to hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's fun. I wish I was covering something that isn't so scary and shitty and tragic, but it's an important story. So I'm going to keep digging. And if you guys find it interesting, keep sharing the show. See you soon.